Every time you walk through the dairy aisle, you're met with an ocean of brightly colored yogurt tubs promising health, vitality, and happiness. They whisper words like low fat, high protein, and gut-friendly, labels crafted to make you feel like you're doing something good for your body. But the truth is, most of these so-called healthy yogurts are nutritional traps disguised as wholesome choices. Behind the pastel packaging and smiling cows lies a mix of processed sugar, artificial sweeteners, and chemical additives that can do more harm than good. People often pick up these products thinking they're buying health in a cup. But what they're really consuming is a cleverly marketed dessert. This illusion of wellness has become one of the food industry's most powerful tricks, exploiting our desire to be healthy without forcing us to give up the taste of indulgence. It all starts with the psychology of packaging. Companies know how to make you trust a product before you even read the ingredients. Words like natural, light, or organic inspired are printed in soft, clean fonts to trigger feelings of purity and safety. Some brands even add phrases like, made with real fruit. But that doesn't mean the fruit isn't drowned in sugar syrup or processed concentrate. The goal is to make you associate the product with health, even when the formula is far from it. The irony is that yogurt, in its original form, is one of the simplest and healthiest foods in the world, just milk and live cultures. But what you find in most store-bought brands today is a Frankenstein version of that simplicity, where profit outweighs nutrition. The moment you open a cup of flavored yogurt, you're stepping into the gray zone between food and sugar-laced comfort. A single serving can have more sugar than a can of soda, and yet it's sold as a breakfast option. The sugar is hidden under terms like evaporated cane juice, fruit concentrate, or natural sweetener. It's a marketing sleight of hand designed to make unhealthy ingredients sound innocent. When you eat it, you feel satisfied, maybe even energized. But that's just the sugar rush fooling your brain into thinking you've made a smart choice. Over time, that illusion takes a toll, especially when your body starts craving more sweetness in what should be simple, nourishing meals. What makes this even more deceptive is how companies capitalize on the growing awareness of probiotics. They know consumers are searching for products that support gut health, so they advertise live cultures and digestive benefits while burying the fact that high sugar content can actually destroy the very bacteria you're trying to feed. It's a paradox that keeps people trapped in a loop, buying products that cancel out their own promises. A yogurt full of sweeteners and artificial flavors isn't helping your digestion, it's harming it. The gut thrives on balance, but modern yogurt brands have turned that balance into a battlefield of chemicals, additives, and misleading nutrition claims. Consumers often think they're choosing between good and bad options, but in reality, they're choosing between different shades of processed, low-fat. Yogurts aren't the solution. They often replace natural fats with sugar and thickeners to maintain texture and flavor. The result, a product that might be lower in fat but higher in all the things you were trying to avoid in the first place. Fat isn't the enemy, manipulation is. The food industry has taught people to fear natural fats while quietly feeding them addictive sweetness. It's not just about calories, it's about how those calories are constructed. Real yogurt nourishes. Fake yogurt manipulates. Yet, not every brand is guilty. There are still companies that keep the original integrity of yogurt alive. They don't drown their product in syrup or hide behind buzzwords. They trust simplicity. These are the brands that understand that health doesn't need to be engineered, it needs to be preserved. But they are outnumbered. For every authentic yogurt, there are 10 pretending to be one. And that's why awareness is power. Because once you know what to look for, once you read past the marketing, you begin to see the patterns. You start questioning the ingredients. You stop being seduced by shiny labels and start valuing what's actually inside. The truth is, the real danger isn't in the yogurt itself. It's in our blind trust. The trust that what's on the shelf must be good simply because it's popular or because the commercial said it's healthy. We've been conditioned to believe health comes in packaged convenience, but real health is rarely convenient. It requires paying attention, slowing down, and making deliberate choices. It means picking plain yogurt and adding your own fruit instead of relying on fruit on the bottom. It means valuing the quiet honesty of simple ingredients over the loud promises of corporate marketing. Because once you strip away the noise, yogurt isn't supposed to be complicated. It's supposed to nourish, not deceive. And until we learn that difference, the dairy aisle will remain a place of illusion rather than nutrition. The deeper you look into the world of commercial yogurts, the clearer it becomes that health has become a product, not a principle. The average person standing in front of a refrigerator full of yogurts isn't choosing based on nutrition, they're choosing based on how the label makes them feel. That's the power of design and suggestion. It doesn't sell you facts, it sells you emotion. A label that says Greek, light, or zero sugar instantly creates the illusion of wellness. You don't question what Greek really means, whether zero sugar includes artificial sweeteners, or whether light just means it's full of stabilizers. You trust it because you want to. The illusion of choice gives you comfort, and that comfort is what brands rely on. They're not in the business of health, they're in the business of belief. Every brand that dominates the market knows that taste is the hook. Sugar is the key to customer loyalty. The food industry understands human biology well enough to exploit it. Sugar triggers dopamine, the same chemical that rewards us for pleasure and survival. Once your brain associates yogurt with that sweet satisfaction, you're hooked. It's why people keep buying the same brands over and over, even after reading that they're unhealthy. The packaging doesn't just catch your eye, it trains your brain. And once you're trained, it's hard to unlearn. That's how something meant to be nourishing becomes another processed comfort food hiding behind a mask of purity. When you examine the ingredient lists, you start noticing how far these yogurts have drifted from their natural origin. Stabilizers like carrageenan and gum, modified starch are used to create that creamy texture that used to come naturally from whole milk. Artificial flavors replace real fruit because they're cheaper, more intense, and longer lasting. Food coloring adds vibrancy so that the yogurt looks fresh, even when it's been on the shelf for weeks. And the saddest part, we've come to expect that artificial perfection. If a yogurt doesn't taste like candy or look like strawberry ice cream, most people don't want it. Real food tastes subtle, and subtle doesn't sell. The same illusion extends into the fitness and diet industry. Brands started adding words like protein and zero fat to target gym goers and calorie counters. But these buzzwords rarely tell the whole story. When fat is removed, texture is lost, so manufacturers replace it with sugar or synthetic thickeners. When sugar is reduced, they add artificial sweeteners like sucralose or aspartame. And while the calorie count looks impressive, what you're really consuming is a lab-engineered mix that confuses your metabolism and dulls your sense of real taste. The result is a product that neither nourishes your gut nor satisfies your body's natural hunger signals. It's a silent cycle of craving disguised as self-control. This is where the deeper psychological manipulation lies, the guilt-free illusion. You're told you can have sweetness without consequence, indulgence without damage, but your body knows the difference, even if your brain doesn't. Artificial sweeteners trigger the same taste receptors that sugar does, leading to insulin spikes, increased cravings, and long-term metabolic confusion. The more you consume them, the more your body forgets what real sweetness feels like. That's why you crave more even after finishing a so-called healthy yogurt. It's not nourishment, it's dependency disguised as balance. Some companies even use the probiotic angle to reclaim their reputation. They highlight the presence of live cultures, even when the product's sugar levels are high enough to kill those very cultures. They throw around scientific terms like bifidobacterium or lactobacillus to sound credible, but what good are probiotics in a sea of sweeteners? Real probiotics thrive in simple, unprocessed environments. They need purity to survive, not pasteurized fruit syrups and synthetic colors. Yet, people still believe that eating a sugary yogurt is good for digestion, because that's what the commercial said. That's how marketing becomes stronger than science. What's fascinating is how this deception has been normalized. Parents buy these yogurts for their children, thinking they're giving them a healthy snack. Office workers grab them as a smart breakfast. Diet-conscious consumers mix them into smoothies, unaware that they're adding the equivalent of spoonfuls of sugar into something that's supposed to be clean. It's not their fault. It's conditioning. We've been taught that convenience equals progress, and anything that fits neatly into a plastic cup must be good. But in reality, true health doesn't come from convenience, it comes from consciousness. When you strip everything away, the labels, the flavors, the slogans, yogurt is supposed to be one of the simplest foods on earth, milk, cultures, and time. That's it. The moment it requires a paragraph of ingredients to explain its texture or taste, it's no longer yogurt, it's a product wearing yogurt's skin. The modern food system has turned simplicity into a luxury and clarity into confusion. But change begins when you start reading past the front label, when you realize that healthy isn't a word that belongs to marketing. It belongs to truth. The act of choosing a real yogurt becomes a small rebellion against an industry that profits from ignorance. Because once you know better, can't go back to pretending. The trap of modern yogurt culture isn't just about what's inside the container. It's about the belief system built around it. People buy yogurt not only to eat but to feel a certain way about themselves. It has become a symbol of health, discipline, and self-care. Holding that small cup in your hand feels like a statement. I'm doing something good for my body. It's a comforting thought, and that's exactly why it's so dangerous. The illusion of health is often more seductive than health itself. The industry understands that the emotional reward is just as important as the physical one, so it keeps feeding you that feeling, one spoonful at a time. The glossy ads showing fit people eating yogurt under morning sunlight are not just selling a product. They're selling identity. The moment you associate a brand with self-worth, it no longer needs to prove its nutritional value. But underneath that glossy image lies an uncomfortable truth about dependency. Many people eat yogurt daily because they believe it's a healthy habit, yet few question whether the brand they're choosing is doing anything beneficial at all. Most flavored yogurts are essentially sugar bombs, designed to taste so good that they become part of your emotional routine. You don't eat them because your body asks for them. You eat them because your brain expects a hit of sweetness disguised as health. The morning ritual becomes less about nourishment and more about emotional comfort. You feel good not because of the yogurt's ingredients, but because of what it represents: control, care, and the illusion of balance. That psychological manipulation runs deep. It's part of why unhealthy yogurt brands continue to thrive. When we talk about processed food, we often imagine chips, fast food, or soda, but yogurt has become one of the most sophisticated examples of silent processing. The product looks innocent and wholesome, but the industrial system behind it is anything but. Milk is often sourced from large-scale dairy farms where hormones and antibiotics are common. Once the milk reaches factories, it's stripped, filtered, and reconstituted to achieve a consistent texture. Then come the thickeners, stabilizers, and sweeteners. The end result looks natural, but has traveled through a long artificial journey. By the time it reaches your fridge, it barely resembles the original fermented milk that once made yogurt a symbol of gut health and longevity. The industry hides behind words like crafted, traditional, or farm style, even when the process is anything but. Another layer of deception lies in how the word Greek has been commercialized. Traditional Greek yogurt is strained to remove whey, making it thick and protein-rich. But many brands skip this slow, authentic process and instead add milk protein concentrate or gelatin to mimic the texture. They charge more for it, market it as premium, and yet the product isn't truly Greek yogurt. It's an imitation built for efficiency and profit. The sad truth is that real yogurt making is a slow art, and the modern world doesn't have patience for slowness. The more we chase convenience, the further we move from authenticity. What was once a living food becomes a lifeless one, stripped of the very bacteria and nutrients that made it valuable in the first place. Beyond the ingredients, the marketing around yogurt has also turned into a subtle form of moral performance. Eating the right brand becomes a statement of who you are, a person who cares about health, fitness, and wellness. Social media has amplified this illusion. Photos of yogurt bowls with chia seeds, berries, and honey flood feeds every morning, giving the impression of balance and discipline. But if you peel away the filters and brand tags, what you often find is the same artificial base underneath. It's not the yogurt that's healthy, it's the image of health that people are addicted to. This culture of appearance has turned food into theater, where looking healthy is more important than being healthy. Yet even in this maze of marketing and manipulation, there's a way back to simplicity. It begins with awareness. When you start reading labels, questioning ingredients and understanding what those long scientific names mean, you take back power from the industry. You stop buying based on comfort and start choosing based on clarity. The moment you pick up plain yogurt and add your own fruit, instead of accepting the prepackaged sweetness, you shift from being a consumer to being a creator of your own health. The difference might seem small, but it's deeply symbolic. It's a quiet act of rebellion in a world that wants to sell you shortcuts to wellness. True health doesn't come from convenience, comes from connection to what you eat, how it's made, and why you choose it. Yogurt at its core is supposed to represent balance, live cultures that nourish life. But when the meaning of that balance is lost, when it becomes just another commercial battlefield of sugar and slogans, we lose more than nutritional value, we lose authenticity. The only way to reclaim it is to remember that the simplest version of something is often the most honest. In a world that profits from confusion, honesty in food is not just rare, it's revolutionary. The real transformation begins when you stop seeing food as a label and start seeing it as energy, as something alive that interacts with your body in subtle ways. Most people don't realize that the quality of what they eat directly shapes not just their physical health, but their mood, focus, and resilience. When you eat something as seemingly innocent as a sugary yogurt every morning, you're not just consuming calories, you're feeding patterns. Your body starts to crave that artificial sweetness, and your brain begins to associate energy and satisfaction with products instead of nourishment. That's how the modern diet traps us, not through visible harm, but through gradual dependency. It builds comfort out of chemicals, routine out of manipulation. Yogurt, once a simple symbol of health, has become a reflection of how disconnected we are from what we eat. What makes this so difficult to notice is that it happens quietly. No one eats a flavored yogurt and immediately feels sick. There's no instant punishment, no clear signal that something's wrong. The effects are cumulative, hidden beneath convenience and habit. You may feel fine, even great, but over time your body begins to shift, energy levels fluctuate, digestion weakens, and cravings grow stronger. It's a slow erosion that feels normal because everyone around you is experiencing it too. We've normalized fatigue, bloating, unstable energy as part of modern life. The truth is, it's not life, it's lifestyle. The food industry has shaped a rhythm where stimulation replaces nutrition. The sugar high gives you a burst of focus, then the crash demands another fix. You don't realize it, but the same cycle that drives soda or candy addiction can be hidden in the yogurt cup you think is keeping you healthy. There's also something deeply psychological about this deception. We live in an age where business has become identity, and food companies exploit that. They sell time disguised as health, quick breakfast, on the go fuel, ready in seconds. Phrases that sound empowering but quietly remind you that you don't have time to take care of yourself properly. And so, the simple act of eating becomes transactional. You give your money and your trust in exchange for the feeling of doing something good, even when the truth is the opposite. Over time, you forget what real care feels like. You think grabbing something prepackaged is self-discipline, when in reality, it's a symptom of detachment. The more disconnected you are from your food, the easier it is for the system to control your habits. This is why awareness feels uncomfortable at first. When you start paying attention, it disrupts the illusion. You begin to see that much of what's marketed as nourishment is really just manufactured satisfaction. Notice that your morning yogurt doesn't energize you, it sedates you. You realize that health isn't supposed to come in glossy packaging or be shouted from ads. It's supposed to be quiet, natural, and consistent. The real yogurt, the kind that's alive with cultures and untouched by artificial flavor, doesn't scream for your attention. It sits humbly on the shelf, often in plain containers, waiting for those who have learned to see through noise. Choosing it becomes more than a dietary decision, becomes a statement of awareness, a refusal to let convenience dictate health. There's a strange sense of liberation in returning to simplicity. When you switch to plain, whole yogurt, you start reconnecting with the sensory truth of food. You taste the natural tang, the subtle creaminess, the real texture of fermented milk. At first, it may seem bland because your taste buds have been conditioned to crave artificial sweetness. But as days pass, something remarkable happens. You begin to recalibrate. You start craving freshness, not sugar. Your body recognizes the difference between stimulation and nourishment, and the fog begins to lift. The more you simplify, the more you feel alive. Real food carries a certain honesty that your body immediately understands. It doesn't trick your senses, it supports them. This shift doesn't just heal the body, it strengthens the mind. When you make conscious choices, you reclaim a part of yourself that's been surrendered to habit. You stop being the passive consumer and start being an active participant in your own well-being. It's no longer about following trends or avoiding guilt, it's about alignment. What you eat begins to reflect how you see yourself. The act of choosing clean yogurt over flavored ones becomes symbolic. It's you deciding to live deliberately instead of reactively. It's a small, quiet rebellion against an industry that profits from distraction. And maybe that's the most powerful lesson hidden inside this entire conversation. Health isn't a trend or a purchase. It's a form of awareness. It's the daily act of choosing what supports you rather than what seduces you. The next time you reach for a yogurt, pause for a moment. Look past the label, the promises, the pretty design. Ask yourself what's actually inside it and why you're choosing it. That pause, that moment of awareness, is where transformation begins. Because once you start questioning what you consume, you begin to question everything else that has quietly shaped your life. And that's when the illusion starts to fade and the truth finally begins to nourish you. Once you see through the illusion, you can't unsee it. The yogurt aisle stops looking like a symbol of health and starts looking like a battlefield of persuasion. Every label, every slogan, every bright color is a psychological weapon designed to control your choices. The truth is, the food industry has never cared about your well-being. It cares about your loyalty. It wants you to keep coming back, to associate its products with comfort, satisfaction, and self-care, even when what it's selling you is the opposite. It knows that the human mind seeks convenience, routine, and pleasure, and it has mastered the art of combining all three in a single plastic cup. What was once a food made through patience and natural fermentation has become a product engineered for profit and dependency. The tragedy isn't just that people are being misled, it's that they've stopped questioning altogether. But awareness changes everything. Once you understand how deeply marketing manipulates perception, you start looking at food differently. You begin to realize that health isn't about trusting what's popular, it's about investigating what's real. You start to see how many choices are made for you before you even walk into the store. The music, the layout, the lighting, all designed to make you feel good about what you're buying. The dairy aisle itself is a psychological stage. Words like active, light, and natural glowing under soft lights. Yet the moment you flip a container and read the fine print, illusion cracks. You see the sugar, the additives, the unpronounceable ingredients. That's when the disconnect becomes obvious. How something marketed as pure can be so processed. That moment of realization isn't just about yogurt, it's about every packaged food we've accepted without thought. Choosing differently becomes a kind of quiet rebellion. When you decide to pick the plain, unsweetened version, you're not just choosing a healthier product, you're rejecting the narrative. You're saying no to manipulation and yes to mindfulness. Might seem insignificant, but it's not. That small act carries weight because it represents awareness. And awareness is contagious. You start noticing patterns in other foods too. How low fat usually means high sugar. How natural flavor often hides chemicals. How organic doesn't always mean honest. You begin to move through the world with sharper eyes. Every label becomes a story. You start reading between the lines. That clarity extends beyond food. The same marketing psychology that sells you yogurt also sells you ideas about health, beauty, success, even happiness. It tells you that wellness comes from things you can buy rather than choices you can make, convinces you that progress means speed and that simplicity is old-fashioned. But real health, like real yogurt, takes time. It's built slowly through attention, patience, and consistency. You can't rush fermentation, just like you can't rush transformation. Both require stillness, awareness, and honesty. The process itself becomes the teacher, reminding you that nourishment isn't supposed to be instant. It's supposed to be real. As you begin to live with this understanding, your relationship with food starts to shift. You no longer see eating as an act of convenience but as an act of connection. You notice how your body responds differently when you feed it real, living food. Digestion improves, your energy stabilizes, your cravings fade. It's not magic, it's alignment. Your body has always known what it needs, it's just been drowned out by noise. Once you remove that noise, once you stop feeding it confusion, it begins to remember its rhythm. You start craving simplicity, not stimulation. You begin to prefer honesty over indulgence. And that's when you truly start to feel healthy, not because of a label, but because of awareness itself. There's also a quiet power in rediscovering authenticity. Making your own yogurt at home, using nothing but milk and cultures, feels different. It reconnects you to something ancient, something human. You witness transformation happening naturally, without shortcuts. It reminds you that nourishment isn't supposed to come from factories. It's supposed to come from nature and patience. Each time you eat something you've made yourself, you reclaim a bit of independence that the modern food system has taken away. You stop being a consumer of illusions and become a creator of truth. And maybe that's the deeper message hidden in this story. Yogurt was never meant to be complicated. It was meant to be alive, pure, and simple, just like the relationship we're supposed to have with our food. But somewhere along the way, simplicity became a casualty of convenience. We traded authenticity for efficiency, nourishment for marketing. Yet it's never too late to return. Every meal, every purchase, every choice is a chance to move closer to what's real. It doesn't require perfection, only awareness. Because once you understand how easily health can be faked, you start valuing what's genuine more than ever. And that's where real transformation begins. Not in the yogurt aisle, but in the quiet, deliberate act of choosing truth over illusion, one spoonful at a time.